Okay, I've sanded all the forward fins. And our next step in step 130 is to apply sanding sealer. So I always use, or I like to use, the wood filler from Elmer's because it's water soluble, but there's a number of things that you might choose. This is a skill level 5 kit, so you are well aware of sealing fins. I've gone ahead and put a little bit in this tub, mixed it with some water, and you can see it's pretty runny. And then I'm just going to paint both sides at the same time. I always do both sides at the same time just in case that the wood warps, because you're putting water into it. Since it is water soluble, that it will warp the same amount on each side. So that's always why I do both sides at the same time. Don't forget the edges. They're easy to forget. This cleans up really easy as it is water soluble. And when it's dry, it sands so nice. Some water here for my paintbrush to clean that out. And I'll give it a good cleaning later. But the next part of this is, to let it dry. So I always like lean it up against something so the air can get to both sides at the same time. This one, I've already gone ahead and painted the sealer on. So we'll just go ahead and sand it. Like I said, it sands pretty fast. So I'm going to use 300 grit sandpaper. And you'll see how much dust this makes here really quick. Notice how I hold it. I try to put even pressure on my fingers so that it lays as flat as it can in my fingers. So I get an even pressure on it as I'm sanding. And there's a lot more fins to do after these. We're going to be doing sanding and sealing also in step number 135 and 148. So in those steps, when I get to them, I'm not going to show you how to do it. I'll just say go ahead and sand and seal. Pretty easy, pretty quick. Compared to sanding the shape into it, this is a joy. Run your finger along here, make sure it feels smooth. Now I'm going to switch to, this is 320 grit, but it's also just in my hand. And that allows you to put pressure in specific spots that were low before. And don't forget the bottom, if any kind of like lapped over the edge, sand that off now. All right, so that looks pretty good. These are ones that I've done before. That one I gotta wait to dry. So while I'm doing that, I'm gonna go on to step 131. Okay, in step 131, we're gonna start by removing the Elevon parts from their sheets. We have a plywood sheet, part number 15507, and we have a balsa wood sheet, 15508. So go ahead and pop those out. Step 132, we're going to take the plywood core and we're going to take the balsa sheets and we're going to glue them onto each side using thick or medium thick super glue. And you'll notice that these are etched, and that etching has to be on the outside because we're going to use those here in just a second. I'll glue these up, put some plastic down on my table, and I'm going to put the glue on the balsa wood side. Make sure all those little slots line up. That's the important part. Oops, wanted to put it on the balsa side because I wanted to make sure I got those spots. Those where, there's that little tab right there. Okay, now I'm going to do all those other ones off camera because I want to show you into step 33. We're going to do some more sanding. But this sanding is so much easier than the forward fins. On these, if you'll notice, they're chamfered on each edge. So the high point is the flat in the middle, and then it comes to a point on the trailing edge and the leading edge and on the tip edge. So that's why you see these lines here And to make sure that we get it right, we're going to put some tape across those lines. So I'm going to do this tip first. So I'm going to put tape right along that edge of this line right there. Flip it over and then do the other side. And now we're going to sand. I'm going to use 180 grit sandpaper. So kind of a medium grit sandpaper. Again, watch where I put my finger. So I'm pressing with that finger on the bottom so that I have a lot of pressure right there. And then this is at a little bit of an angle because eventually I want it to go right up against that line right there. I don't know if you can see this. I'm not quite there yet on the edge. I'm looking at that edge. I just want to see that plywood starting to show up. Okay, so I can feel it. I can see the plywood showing up right there, though I'm not flat across. Okay, so I like that tip. Now, I don't know if you can see this. So what I'm going to do, just so that you can see this a little bit better, now we're going to do this edge right here, but I'm going to take a marker and I'm going to color this area right here, just so that you can see what's going on, right up into that line. Okay, so it's right up on the edge of that line. Flip it over, do the other side too. Now, when I sand, you can see I'm already taking off some of the marker there. So I'm kind of starting at the edge and working up to the middle. And you want to make sure that that line looks pretty straight. And again, look at my fingers underneath. I'm kind of putting even pressure on the bottom of the part so that I can press it up hard against the sandpaper. Okay, so now my line a little bit crooked, so I need to put more pressure right there. Okay, so that one's pretty good. Now I could do the same thing on this side if I wanted. I could, put the marker on it. And if you're doing this for the very first time, if you've never chamfered fins before, this is not a bad technique to use because it makes sure that you're getting this nice straight line. So that's good. I want that nice knife edge right there. I can live with that. I'm going to peel the tape off. I'm going to do one more time on the leading edge. So, wipe off the dust so that the tape sticks a little bit better. Now we're going to do these. This time I'm not going to put the marker on there and see how good I can get it. Okay, I can feel it. So peel off the tape. All right, so that looks good. I'm checking, making sure all my bevels are at the right angle. This bevel right here, don't know if I'm all the way up to the line, so I'm just going to touch it up. This bevel right here, I can see a little bit of black. All right, so that was step 133. And so I'm going to finish up all of these before moving on to step 134. So I'll be back after I finish gluing and sanding all of my fins. So this is a lot easier than doing those forward ones. I'd much rather do this all day long. In step 133, we finished sanding all the elevons. In step 134, we're going to remove the elevon hinge details, which is E4 from this plywood sheet. Once you get them out, they're like really small. I want to just clean them up a little bit on the edges. Okay, so those are glued into the little, not there, this slot right there. They're just slid on, push them on all the way like that. And then I'm just going to put a drop of thin CA to them in place, just like that. Okay, so do all of those, and then step 135, you're going to seal them again with the sealer. And when you're done with that, they're going to look like this. Okay, I've sealed them all. I've got the Elevon hinge detail on it right there. Now in step 136, we're going to remove the 4 dynamic weights from the injection mold, and those are these things that kind of look like a saddle. They look like that, and you know, you can clean up that little bit of sprue. All right, and then those are going to get glued into this notch right there. If you got any excess filler, just clean that out. You'll notice that it's kind of angled. You'll want the angle to kind of match, so the high side is near the thick side of the fin, and then you're going to push it on there. Straighten it out. And these are the dynamic weights. And then I'm just going to touch a little super glue on it and let it wick in. Don't put too much on. So that's step 136. So do all 4 of them. And then we're going to go on to step 137. These are the last 4 fins. So these aren't bad either. They're much like these. They're easy to sand. You're going to want to remove DF1 from the plywood sheet, and then all 8 of these balsa ones. And as before, we're going to glue them together, and that is in step 138. So I'm going to start pulling these out, and we'll glue them together really quick. Okay, so when you get them taken out, we're going to take our medium CA glue and we're going to glue them up like that. Make sure you get right up into those corners right there with your super glue. Those are the weak spot until they're glued onto the plywood. Okay, so I'm going to do all of those, and then we'll come back and start sanding these. And these will be the final ones we have to sand. So we're almost done.